And one of your core principles is that you should think about finding a job almost as a sales process. Maybe you can just touch on what that means.
Yeah. So a sales process is really about being super organized and having milestones that you want to hit, a strategy that you want to deploy, and having some reflection as well as part of that process. So hopefully, by giving a few tips on each of those areas, job seekers can be more organized in their search, and applying that structure can feel a bit more meaningful when the market's super turbulent and it's really difficult for people.
Yeah. And it's interesting because you talk about being organized, which feels like quite a local thing. You know, I can be quite local, but a big part of it is actually going out into the world, isn't it? And it's finding jobs and it's making applications and doing all of the interviews. How does this approach of yours change that part?
Mm. So hopefully it's going to give people the tools to be able to network with individuals confidently. It's going to enable them to think about how they present themselves externally, and it will give them the confidence to really assess how they bring value to a process. And ultimately, that's what sales is about, bringing value to an interaction.
And I'm sure that there will be people watching or listening who will maybe feel uncomfortable with the idea of themselves as salespeople, right? You know, they don't have any training. Maybe they don't want to be a salesperson. And so for some people, that might come a bit, it might give them a bit of discomfort. What would you say to those people?
Oh, yeah, absolutely right. So I don't know when it happened, but at some point, sales became a dirty word, something that we don't like to do or something that people shy away from. I remember in my early days of recruitment, people used to call me the recruiter a necessary evil. And I was like, wow, this is strong.
What have I
Um,
walked into? Yeah.
yeah, exactly. So sales can be perceived really negatively. And we've got to be really careful about that, right? Because if we perceive a sales process to be negative, and yet a job searching process, an interview process is very similar to a sales process, we are projecting that to be a negative experience before it's even started. So I think it's really helpful for job seekers to map out and just jot down some notes. What do they think about sales initially? What are the assumptions? How would they describe sales? Most people tie sales to a really bad sales experience that they've had in
Right.
the past. And if they rephrase, so they take a moment, assess where their current thinking is at, and then reframe that, right? Because in that reframe process, we can become more positive about the experience. So seeing sales as a process of solving someone else's problems, right? You have a job you need to fill. I'm going to bring some value to that process. I have a set of skills that you might like to purchase and buy. Let's talk about it. And then thinking about the sales process as a storytelling as well. So describing your experience, describing your skill set more as a storytelling experience removes it from feeling too salesy in people's eyes. And really, sales is ultimately about relationship building, right? Every time we communicate to someone, we are building some form of relationship with them. So hopefully that's three positive reframes that someone can apply to a process before thinking about, oh my goodness, I've got to sell myself to
Mhm.
people I don't know.
Got it. So I like what you walk through there because a lot of what you're talking about are things that are very much in my control. So it's very much about being organized, about planning, about having the right approach. It's not necessarily the bit that I think scares a lot of people, which is the sort of, I've got to close somebody. I've got to push them to an answer that maybe they don't want. And that's the thing I think that a lot of people look at and say, I'm not a salesperson. I can't close that deal.
Mm. Well, I think because many people have experienced a sales process where there's been a lack of integrity. So people have pushed their view too strongly, or people have missold. They've represented a different image of what the product is or the process is. And that lack of integrity is what has created the poor experience. So if we approach a sales process with as much integrity and truth and honesty as possible, it should feel good for both parties involved.
Got it. Okay. And let's just pause a second. Hiring managers are overwhelmed, and for every application, every job advert that they put out there, they get tens or hundreds or even thousands of people just trying to get in front of them.
Mm.
When they are so overwhelmed, and I know that we're going to give some really good tactics later on, but as a general principle, when they are so overwhelmed, what chance does somebody have when they're just one of those people, throwing their hat into the ring?
Yeah, so AI has definitely exacerbated this issue because people are making hundreds and hundreds of job applications using AI tools which are untargeted and a bit of a copy and paste job. So HR professionals are feeling overwhelmed because the volume has increased, the quality might not have increased, and it's very hard to spot talent in that
Hmm.
widened pool now. So for job seekers, we have to combat that by being super targeted and super on spec. Really think about the requirements of a job, and if you hit those requirements and you're suited to the job, then go for it. But there's no point channeling hundreds and hundreds of applications for things that you're misaligned for.
Got it. Okay, so it sounds like everything leads up to the CV and the actual application, and making sure that everything you've put in place before that means that when you do that, you've got a much better chance of resonating with the hiring manager, maybe the ATS, and just having that better chance. Is that fair?
Yes, I would say so. And unfortunately, part of the problem is it's going to be a numbers game. There is a bit of luck in this market because the volumes of talent are so vast. But if you can tailor your application as much as possible, I think you have a higher chance of conversion at the end.